Who wrote the first 3 degrees of Freemasonry? By Past Master McHenry. The first 3 degrees of Freemasonry are the Entered Apprentice, the Fellow Craft, and the Master Mason. These degrees are the foundation of the Masonic system and convey the basic principles, symbols, and rituals of the order. They are also known as symbolic degrees because they use symbols and allegories to teach moral and spiritual lessons. But who wrote these degrees? The answer is not clear, as there is no definitive historical record of their origin and development. However, some clues can be found in the early documents and manuscripts of Freemasonry, as well as in the works of Masonic historians and scholars. I do want to highlight that an independent study will show many possible similarities between the first 3 degrees of Freemasonry and the Egyptian mysteries in that they both aim to teach the initiate about the divine nature of themselves and their relationship to a higher power. One of the oldest sources of modern Masonic history is the Halliwell manuscript, also known as the Regis poem, which dates from between 1390 and 1425. This document contains a brief history of Masonry, stating that it began with Euclid in Egypt, and came to England in the reign of King Athelstan. It also mentions some rules and regulations for Masons but does not describe any specific degrees or ceremonies. Another early source is the Matthew Cook manuscript, which dates from around 1450. This document expands on the history of Masonry, tracing it back to Jabal, the son of Lamech, who was the first to work with stone. It also tells how Masonry was transmitted from Egypt to Israel, Greece, Rome, France, and England. It gives more details about the organization and duties of Masons but still does not mention any degrees or rituals. The first document that refers to degrees or steps of Masonry is the Edinburgh Register House manuscript, which dates from 1696. This document records the minutes of a meeting of Scottish Masons, where 6 candidates were admitted as entered apprentices and fellow crafts. It also contains some questions and answers that were used to test the knowledge of the candidates. However, it does not describe any ceremonies or symbols associated with these degrees. The first document that describes some aspects of the rituals and symbols of the first 3 degrees is the Graham manuscript, which dates from 1726. This document contains a catechism or series of questions and answers that explain the meaning and origin of various Masonic terms and symbols. It also includes some legends and stories that relate to the history and symbolism of Masonry. For example, it tells how King Solomon built his temple with the help of Hiram Abiff, the master builder, who was killed by 3 ruffians who wanted to learn his secrets. It also tells how Noah preserved some ancient writings in a stone vault under his house before the flood. The first document that gives a complete account of the rituals and symbols of the first 3 degrees is Samuel Pritchard's Masonry Dissected, which was published in 1730. This document is an exposure or revelation of so-called Masonic secrets by a former member who became disillusioned with the order. It describes in detail the ceremonies, signs, tokens, words, and grips of each degree, as well as some lectures and charges that were delivered to the candidates. It also reveals some variations and changes that occurred in different lodges and regions. Pritchard's exposure was followed by many others in the 18th century, such as 3 Distinct Knocks, 1760, Jachin and Boaz, 1762, The Master Key, 1764, etc. These documents show that there was no uniformity or standardization in the rituals and symbols of Freemasonry at that time. Different lodges had different versions and interpretations of the degrees, and some even added or omitted elements according to their preferences. It was not until 1813 that a unified system of rituals and symbols for the first 3 degrees was established to my understanding. This is not a light topic and deserves much more of my attention and research. I will revisit this topic later. However, the legend of the 3rd degree is a story that is told in Freemasonry, and one could strongly argue is based on the ancient Egyptian myth of the death and rebirth of Osiris, the god of the underworld and the judge of the dead. According to the legend, Osiris was killed by his jealous brother Set, who cut his body into pieces and scattered them across the land. Osiris's wife Isis searched for the pieces and reassembled them, with the help of Anubis, the god of mummification. However, one piece was missing, Osiris's phallus, which had been eaten by fish. Isis fashioned a replacement from gold and used magic to revive Osiris. She then conceived a son with him, named Horus, who later avenged his father by defeating Set and becoming the king of Egypt. The legend of the 3rd degree is used as an allegory for the initiation ritual of the Master Mason degree, the highest rank in Freemasonry. The candidate for this degree represents Hiram Abiff, the mythical architect of King Solomon's temple, who was murdered by 3 fellow workers who wanted to learn the secrets of his craft. The candidate is then raised from a symbolic death by a grip known as the lion's paw, which represents the resurrection of Osiris and his son Horus. The legend of the third degree and the Egyptian myth of death and rebirth are examples of how ancient cultures express their beliefs about the afterlife and the cycle of nature. These stories have inspired many generations of people to seek wisdom and enlightenment through symbolic rituals and moral teachings. Let's get to the light.